So I'm Becca. I'm the editor-in-chief of the News Movement. I've worked in traditional news for over a decade at lots of big newspaper titles and have been at the News Movement for just under 3 years. And my job is to oversee all the editorial output from our journalists who are based in London and New York.
I'm Laura. I'm the Chief People Officer at Calibre, which is the parent company to the News Movement. We also have other editorial brands called The Recount and Capsule. We have an agency brand that sits under that called the Calibre Collective. And we have an app that's in beta phase, which hopefully you'll all see next year, which is called Say So. I've been in the people space for 20 years, which is quite scary. Talent, and then latterly as Chief People Officer. And I've been in media on and off for about the last 8, also traditional media, and then loving this new world.
Good.
Okay, we've got it.
Excellent. So I guess we'll sort of set the scene. Laura's obviously set up that Calibre is our parent company, and we have kind of several news brands. If you just click on, we can give you a bit of an idea about how many people our different way of doing news and telling stories are reaching. So across our 3 editorial brands, we've got over 2.3 million followers. Our engagement rates at an average of 9%. The industry average is somewhere around 2%. So that's probably the stat that I'm most proud of, that the content that we make is consistently compelling and engaging, and people are sticking with it and absorbing, whether it's the good information, the takes, the fun, the sass, however we're delivering our stories, people are really engaging with it and sticking with it. And we're reaching over 100 million people every month. So we like to think of our followers as our tribe, and the 100 million people are the people that are interacting with our content and meeting our brands on the different platforms that we operate on a monthly basis. And like I said, I head up the News Movement, but we're delighted to share the Calibre stable with The Recount, which is a US politics brand based in the States, and Capsule, who is our kind of grown-up big sister. She's a weekly newsletter and an Instagram page, and she covers kind of fashion and lifestyle for a Zillennial audience, which is kind of women in their late 20s and early 30s. And then if we click on, I can just tell you a little bit more about the News Movement in particular. Probably what I'm most proud of on this slide is quite how many women we reach every month. So our audience is split 55-45 female to male, which is so unusual for a news brand, which is typically kind of consumed by men, male audiences, and news is typically fronted by men. So we're really pleased that the kind of approach that we've got to storytelling, which we're going to get into, is resonating with audiences who are typically quite underserved by existing media. We're not in the game of criticizing how other people do stuff. We're just about trying to do things differently and address the fact that lots of people don't engage with news in the way that we think that they should. And so we want to kind of present good information in a way that's compelling and interesting and reaching everyone, not just people who are particularly interested in the news or who see themselves reflected back to them. So that's just some sexy numbers there. And on the next slide, we've just got a little sizzle reel that gives you a bit of a taste of what our journalism looks like.
Okay.
We love that music, if nothing else. So we just click on to the next slide. I can just talk to you a little bit about how what you just watched is an example of journalism. And it might not be what you necessarily think of when you think about a career in journalism. You might think about being in a traditional newsroom like the ones I grew up in, or a TV station or a radio station. But our news hopefully looks a lot more like the content that you're seeing on your social feeds and engaging with and enjoying. And we're basically meeting our audiences where they are. You know, the majority of audiences under the age of 35 are less likely to consume news than their parents, than their older siblings and their cousins. And we think that's kind of grossly unfair. We also know that 60% of Gen Z, that's anyone born after 97, are getting their news from social media. So we don't expect audiences to come and find us. We will go and find them. And I always say, if our journalism doesn't do well, that's not the audience's fault. It's because we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So what we require is a level of kind of creative thinking in terms of our presentation, in terms of our story selection, in terms of how we present and bring our stories to our audience's attention. Our responsibility is to make that compelling, accessible, fun, and also fit in on the platforms that we're publishing on. And if we just click on to the next slide, we've just got a few of our editorial pillars, which again feel quite different to other news brands. So I like to describe this as a bit like Clive Myrie, but as if he were on a chicken shop date. So we've got all the integrity and the scrutiny that you get from traditional newsrooms, but we hopefully show up, like I keep saying, in a way that's a bit more enjoyable or compelling to watch. A big thing for us is that we stand kind of shoulder to shoulder with our audience and we report their reality. We don't have a house view. We are not a judgmental brand. We don't really mind what people are doing, so long as they're doing it safely and so long as they're doing it because they had good information to make that decision with. So we're not hugely fussed how you vote. We just want to make sure that you consume some really solid, non-partisan reporting about the issues that matter to you, and you are then able to go and make a decision about how you want to behave in the world and how you want to show up in society. I like to think of us as being really bold, and that's probably my favorite statement on our slide, is that it's pretty daring to sort of challenge how things are done, especially something as established as news. And I think there are loads and loads of stories that aren't told, and they aren't told well. And so I encourage my team kind of every day to look at what's being covered and for then us to go and find the things that aren't being covered and make sure that people who are having their experiences told by the news and by media on our page and on our brand are actually getting an opportunity to kind of really share their voice and their experience. And so that's where the boldness comes from. And I'll just tag on one final slide, which is kind of how we think about the world. So we unfortunately can't cover every story. So we think about our coverage in terms of 4 pillars, which is just on the next slide. So we look at the daily news, we look at arts and culture, we look at life and style, and we look at sex and relationships. And this means we're covering everything from the kind of big global news stories and what's dominating the agenda, right through to things like the rights and integrity of different communities to live around the world. We do a lot around the lifestyle space, so particularly around harm reduction, particularly around wellness and mental health. And everyone loves going out or loves staying in. I'm definitely the latter. And so we do a lot of coverage around kind of how to spend your time, whether that's the latest films, latest podcasts, latest releases. And this is kind of how we view the world. So we don't think about things in terms of home news or foreign news or science. We think much more in terms of how our audience experience stories, and that's how we tell them. So that's a little bit of the overview of the news movement, and hopefully it's really clear, or hopefully a little clear, how we're trying to do things differently and how our news looks and shows up in a slightly different way. And I will hand over to Laura.
If you go to the next slide, thank you. How we look for our talent. If you just click them all through, it might be easier, but one of the ways is through our audience. So traditional hiring, you tend to look through adverts on LinkedIn, adverts on Milkground, wherever else it might be. What we're really trying to do is hit people where they are. We've only just started doing this, so we'll see where the value comes through. But you will start to see on our feeds that we are advertising a lot more, because having people that already follow us is an advantage when we bring people through. Also through people's creative outlets, we're looking for people that think differently about the way that news is created. And outside of the ecosystem of the news movement, for our other brands, we're looking for something very similar. So one of our recent hires in the news movement, the main reason that we fell in love with them is actually not just their ability, but the work that they were already putting out. In terms of the networks that we create and join, it's worth just doing a little bit of a plug here. From next year, we'll be running our own network so that people can come in, see what we're doing, have an experience, and then potentially form part of a broader ecosystem that will enable us to come to you when we are looking to find talent and potentially when you're looking. And individualism, if we really want people to stand out, we're not looking for people that follow the crowd. Individualism isn't about where you're from, what you look like, what your religion is. Individualism is about your thought process and how that shows up in the stories that you tell. And I think if I just end, if you go to the next slide, May, this is one of our recent hires. And one of the main reasons, having spoken to Cash, that we fell in love with him is the work that he was already doing online to build a big following. So if you could share this, that would be great.
This little girl there, she looks so effortless. And I'm there like...
You're probably thinking, why have I taken my mum to an Irish dance class? As you can see, I'm excited. I'm back on my hunt for some joy.
It's about getting it in the joy. Come on, mum, let's go.
Yeah, come on.
And everywhere we go, my mum will bring Jubilee Church with us. But yeah, here we are, Irish tap dancing, random activity number 3. Here's how it went.
Okay.
There's the teacher, Erin. Honestly, such a beautiful energy.
3, 4, 1, 2. I need like a 5 minute. I need like a 5 minute break. Mum,
Just do this bit one more time, just so we get it.
I feel quite nervous. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2.
Do you know what, right? That was, I so enjoyed that. It was brilliant.
And you know, once we get home, I've got to show Dad.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4.
The reason that we shared that is what we're really looking for is people that love what they do so much. They're already doing it with or without the mechanism that is the news movement to come and join us. That series actually was for Cash. He was turning a certain age. His mum was turning a certain age, and he wanted to find ways to bring joy to him and also to his followers. So if you are looking for a career with us, or potentially with maybe a more forward-looking media outlet, these are the types of things that we'll be looking for when we start to interview you. I think that's it for us.